History has left a specific fingerprint on the crime scene of every fallen superpower. It is not a vague prophecy in academic theory or a stock market guess. It is a cold, unyielding integer. Whenever a dominant civilization reaches a debt-to-GDP ratio of 130%, it enters a terminal tailspin within a decade. Every single time, that threshold is the mathematical point of no return. And right now, the United States of America is sitting at 128%. We entered the red zone in 2024. The historical algorithm suggests we have anywhere from 18 months to 8 years before the machinery grinds to a halt. When I say halt, I am not talking about a recession or a dip in the S&P 500. I am talking about the type of systemic fracture that erases empires, incinerates currencies, and redraws world maps. Over the next 25 minutes, I am going to dissect why this specific number is the grim reaper of nations. We will look at the civilizations that ignored the math and paid the ultimate price, pinpoint exactly where we stand on this timeline, and map out the inevitable future. This isn't speculation, it is forensic accounting, and in 2,000 years this indicator has never registered a false positive. Let's strip away the jargon. What does debt to GDP actually represent? Most people tune out when they hear macroeconomics, but hear it. The economics of fallen empires, we believe clarity is survival. This metric is simply a comparison between what a country owes and what it produces. Imagine you earn $5,000 a year, but you are carrying $50,000 in debt. That is a 100% ratio. It is heavy, but with discipline you can dig yourself out. Now imagine you earn that same $50,000, but you owe $100,000. You are now at 200%. You are mathematically underwater. You cannot work enough hours to pay it back. Your only options are personal bankruptcy, or if you had a magic wand making your debt vanish. Governments have that magic wand. It's called the printing press. But when they use it to escape debt, they don't just file for Chapter 11. They vaporize the purchasing power of their citizens, ignite wars, or simply disintegrate. Here's the data set that should keep you awake at night. Every hegemon that breached the 130% barrier faced an existential crisis within 5 to 10 years. This isn't a most of the time rule, it is an absolute. Let's examine the evidence case by case. First, the Roman Empire. By 300 AD, the engine of the Western world had a debt-to-GDP ratio estimated at 150%. How did they get there? By overextending. They had legions stationed on 3 continents, massive infrastructure projects, and a welfare state designed to keep the mob happy. To pay for it all, they didn't just borrow, they cheated. They debased the denarius. Under Augustus, the coin was 95% silver. By the 260s AD, under Emperor Gallienus, it was a copper slug with a 5% silver wash. They were inflating the currency the old-fashioned way. The result? Prices exploded, the tax system failed, regions revolted. Rome didn't vanish instantly in 300 AD, but it became a dead empire walking. The economy began to contract, and they lost the capacity to defend their borders. The sack of Rome in 476 AD was just the tombstone. The death happened 2 centuries earlier when the math broke. Fast forward to the 16th century. Spain was the titan of the age, fueling its economy with gold and silver from the New World. They seemed invincible. Yet by 1557, their debt to GDP hit 140%. King Philip II was fighting wars on every front: France, the Ottomans, the Dutch, and funding a global empire. The interest on his loans compounded faster than the gold fleets could arrive. In 1557, Spain defaulted, then again in 1575, and 5 more times over the next century. Each default was a nail in the coffin of Spanish dominance. By 1700, the former master of the world was a second-rate power. The decline began the moment they crossed the 140% line. Jump to France, 1788. Under Louis XVI, France was an agricultural and cultural powerhouse, but they were drowning in red ink. Their debt ratio hit 150% due to lavish royal spending and funding the American Revolution, the killer statistic? By 1788, half of all French tax revenue went solely to paying interest on the debt. Not the military, not roads, just interest. The government was insolvent. When the king tried to raise taxes to plug the hole, he didn't fix the budget, he triggered the French Revolution 1 year after. Crossing the debt threshold, the Bastille was stormed. The financial crisis of 1788 became the bloodshed of 1789. Then there was the nightmare of Weimar Germany, following World War. Crushed by reparations and a broken economy, Germany's debt ratio soared past 160% by 1923. Lacking tax revenue, they turned on the printers. The exchange rate went from 42 marks to the dollar to 42 trillion. Life savings evaporated. Society unraveled. In the vacuum of this economic suicide, extremism found fertile ground. The hyperinflation of 1923 destroyed the middle class and paved the road directly to the rise of Hitler and the Second World War. The pattern does not just forecast poverty, it forecasts blood. In modern times, look at Greece. In 2010, they hit 180%. The result was the total loss of national sovereignty. The EU and IMF took the keys. Pensions were slashed, youth unemployment hit 60%, and the nation became a coons. Protectorate of its creditors crisis arrived on schedule. But what about Japan? I hear you ask. This is the favorite counter-argument. Japan's debt is currently a staggering 250%, yet Tokyo is still standing. Doesn't this break the rule? No, Japan proves the rule in a different way. Japan crossed the 130% threshold in the late 90s. Since then, they have endured the lost decades, 30 years of zero-growth deflation and wage stagnation. Japan didn't explode, it calcified. It is a zombie economy, technically animated, but dead inside. Japan survives only because of unique circumstances. Their debt is owned domestically, and they are a net creditor to the world. They have a compliant population that accepts a slow decline. The United States enjoys none of these luxuries. We rely on foreign capital, we run trade deficits, and our population is historically volatile. If we follow the Japanese trajectory, it will not be a polite stagnation. It will be violent. So where is the United States today? As of early 2026, the national debt stands at $38 trillion against a GDP of $297 trillion. That is 128%. We are 2 percentage points, a rounding error away from the historical death line. With deficits running at $2 trillion annually, we will breach 130% within the next 12 to 24 months. We are standing on the ledge. The trajectory is terrifying. In 1980, our debt was a healthy 35%. Then came the Reagan expansion, the war on terror, the 2008 bailouts, and the COVID stimulus. We went from 35% to 120% in a single generation. Now at 128%, the interest payments alone cost $12 trillion a year. We spend more on servicing our credit card than we do on defending the nation or caring for the elderly. We are approaching the mathematical event horizon, the moment when interest payments consume all individual income tax revenue. Once that happens, the government is essentially a Ponzi scheme borrowing money just to pay off yesterday's lenders. You cannot tax your way out of this. You could confiscate the wealth of every billionaire, and it wouldn't balance the books for a year. You cannot cut your way out because the spending is locked into mandatory entitlements, and you cannot grow your way out because a mature economy cannot outrun debt compounding at 7% annually. The only exits left are default, hyperinflation, or war. Governments almost never choose. Default, it is political suicide. They choose to inflate the currency or start a conflict to reset the board. Here is the timeline of the coming storm. History suggests a 5 to 10-year window from the moment the threshold is crossed. Phase 1. The confidence drain 2026 to 2027. Foreign powers like China and Saudi Arabia accelerate their dumping of U.S. Treasuries, bond yields spike, mortgage rates climb to double digits. The housing market freezes. Phase 2. The fiscal heart attack. 2027 to 2028, a Treasury auction fails. No one wants to buy American debt. The Federal Reserve is forced to print trillions to buy the bonds itself. This is the moment the dollar dies a spiritual death. Inflation rips from 3% to 15%. Gas and food prices detach from reality. Phase 3. The social fracture 2028-2030. With savings destroyed and unemployment rising, civil unrest becomes the norm. The government responds with draconian controls, capital restrictions, price fixing, and asset seizures. Phase 4. The reset 2003-2035. The government faces a binary choice. Hyperinflate the debt away or go to war. History tells us war is the preferred option for dying empires. It provides the ultimate excuse for restructuring, debt seizing, control, and rebooting the currency. Do not fall for the American exceptionalism trap. Rome thought it was eternal. Spain thought it was divinely protected. Every empire thinks the laws of gravity don't apply to them until they hit the ground. The U.S. dollar S status is not a birthright. It is a lease, and the landlord is preparing an eviction notice. The BRICS nations are building lifeboats. Central banks are hoarding gold. The world knows the dollar is on borrowed time. So what is your move? How do you insulate yourself from a 130% debt collapse? First, get out of the blast radius. If your wealth is entirely in paper dollars or standard stocks, you are standing on the train. Tracks move into assets that cannot be printed. Physical gold and silver stuff you can hold, not a paper contract. Historically, 10 to 20% of your net worth is the insurance policy. Second, secure real production. Land, specifically farmland, energy, commodities. Things that people need to survive, regardless of what the currency is worth. Third, attack your variable debt. Credit card interest will eat you alive in an inflationary spike. Clear it. However, if you have a 30-year fixed mortgage at a low rate, keep it. Inflation will essentially pay that debt off for you. Fourth, build a fortress of independence. This isn't just about money. It's about food reserves, water access, and a network of people you trust. In a systemic crisis, your community is your net worth. Finally, watch the dashboard. Keep your eyes on the 10-year Treasury yield and the dollar index. If the Fed restarts the money printer QE to buy government debt, that is the smoke signal. This is the core mission of the economics of fallen empires, to interpret the signals before the noise drowns them out. The 130% threshold is a hard reality. It has claimed Rome, Spain, France, and Germany. The United States is at 128%. We are walking into the same trap, convinced that this time it will be different. It won't be. The math is inevitable. The debt is unpayable. The timeline is accelerating. The only variable left is you. Will you be part of the 5% who study history and position themselves to thrive, or the 95% who trust the system and lose everything? The next 24 months determine your trajectory for the next decade. If this analysis turned on a light bulb for you, subscribe and hit the notification bell. In our next video, we will break down the month-by-month timeline from 2026 to 2030, giving you the playbook for each stage of the collapse. The clock is ticking, the threshold is near. Don't be the last one to see it coming.